So, I'm going to talk generally about the Culinary user experience. I work at Autodesk. I'm a principal user researcher now. I started sort of my cooking experience when I was 15. And my grandmother had a bad divorce, and I started cooking, and she ate. You should know some backgrounds. I've done a lot of cooking and actually some catering. So I actually help with a homeless shelter every few months. I've catered some events up to 150 people. So if I retire, you can call me. And wow, we missed all that. So one of the things, if you look through the literature, you start seeing quotes. These are some user experience. What can we learn from food design? What makes a good design critic? So all of us like to watch those restaurant sessions. And what are some of the issues around interaction design? Now, there's some interesting research out there I thought I'd share. I actually have some followers on my Facebook. We have augmented reality, so you see my little brain out there, but we eat too much, and we might have things that make things small. Now, we also use this metaphor a lot in our work, low-hanging fruit. Anybody heard that in your work? There's an assumption behind that low-hanging fruit is good, right? And it could be very bad and such. We also have the metaphor of the buffet and presenting all these features to users. Now, one of the things that kind of comes close to this is that the culinary experience, I think, happens when you walk in the door and you're greeted. And then you wait, and then you sit down, and you have this kind of very broad from the beginning to end. Now, some of you have seen the user experience pyramid at the bottom. It's usually something like usefulness, usability, and delight. Well, there's a similar pyramid here. At the bottom, you hope it doesn't make you sick or kill you. Okay? At the second level, it's a pretty good meal. And at the third level, it's something like this. This is from a one-star Michelin restaurant in San Francisco. And it delights you. There are flavors that bounce out and layers of kind of delight. And look at the sort of like it's stacked beautifully. Now, we talk a lot about metrics, and my colleague Anair and I and Anant are all working on metrics for our company, and they're ones for the Culinary UX. These are some good ones. Response time, right? You're in a restaurant and you're waiting and you're standing in line. One of the issues I thought was that food errors are something we deal with. So, Jacob and Rolf's list of heuristics that prevent errors. Loose fillings, the things that like fall out of your plate. Violating norms, splatter. Okay, I have shirts that I designate splatter shirts for particular meals. Now, when we're brainstorming and doing other activities, people say, bring food. Well, if you read the social psychology literature, food is a good reward. You get like 1 point higher in the SAT scales. Now, when I started taking formal cooking classes from the CIA and the New England Culinary Institute, they talked about this thing, mise en place, everything in its place. This is both good for designers, putting things in place in the interface, and also recognizing that when we do this, we want to be consistent. So note these plates have consistency, and if you're in the sort of culinary thing, you're judged highly on consistency from plate to plate. Consistency in the UX world is a very complex thing, just like the usability of labels. So these are in grams. I don't know what 45 grams is, and recently there's been issues around. People don't understand this. I think there was a news show that talked about this. Now, what can we learn from restaurant design? Well, one of the things is like shielding people from one another. You can learn that. You can sort of learn about lighting, which we'll talk about later. You can look at accessibility and how you can get around. And one of the things that I find distasteful is these big curved seats where you actually end up feel like you're sitting with people you don't like. So that's another one. Now, plating is very important. Plating maybe has a metaphor of like how we put things forth in different contexts. So here's a good plate. It's containing the juice. It has some symmetry. And, well, this is scary. And another aspect of sort of the restaurant experience is getting support and getting interruptions. Remember old Clippy? He wasn't as bad as you thought, and there's history behind there. But speaking of mandolins, a big part of the culinary experience is choosing tools that don't cut your hands. Anybody have a mandolin in here? Okay, don't raise your hand too long because I got to keep moving. Other things that affect the table shape and size, and this might sort of the layout of things. I think recently I saw a round table of a 6 is good for maximal interaction. Any bigger and you start to lose people. So this is my last slide, and I'd like to invite you to sort of experience the culinary experience here. And if you want, we're developing checklists, and you can spend your dinners with the checklist and evaluating the user experience. Whew, thank you. That's really scary.